Summarize that we worked this morning on the external focus of communication. Now we're going to delve inside. So again, we're not asking anyone to be experts about what's going on inside people's heads, but we do have evidence of what is happening, and we'll show you that there are certain things that you can do that are within your control that can greatly impact a person's perception in terms of how you're leading them. Okay. Back to the pyramid, and we're moving now to another stage, which is the beginning. Again, this is, remember, this is all for counseling. We're not counselors, but we're taking some of the skills, the counseling component of being a leader, and now we're moving here to the beginning of what would be a 5-stage interview, and I won't give these details, this will just take us somewhere else, but what it says here is, and evaluating the interview for empathic understanding. So we are moving to, we've heard it mentioned already today and yesterday, the importance of empathy, but we're going to dive in and see what is it like to actually try to be empathic to somebody, and you're also going to get some real-time feedback today as to how you are perceived, but in a very, very safe activity that just involves a questionnaire. It's a question and answer thing, okay? So there's, oh, I don't know why that's faded. Intentional responding is where we're going, the message of empathy. So in doing some research, I was lucky enough to discover this I'm really a big fan of neuroscience and neuro-leadership. I used to deliver the iLeadership program here at the school, and we had a big component of leading with the brain in mind. And so there is a series of definitions that were determined. They did a sort of a meta study and found that different authors have different interpretations of empathy. So in their study, the 2 questions they asked was, how can one know what another person is thinking and feeling? And what leads one person to respond with sensitivity and care to the suffering of another? All right. And they came up with, in the research, they found 8 different definitions of experts who say this is what empathy is. So let's have you take a look at it. At your table groups, take 2 minutes and look at these, and then come to a consensus as what would be the servant leader-ish definition. It's in here for sure. It's one of these 8, but what do you consider, knowing what you know so far, take a shot. Again, there's no right or wrong here because there are 8, and the servant leader one links to one of these, and we want to find out, which one do you think it might be. So look at it, and then at your table groups.
Yeah, we don't have it in here.
No, this is only on here. You have to see it on the big screen, yeah. So we read it, and then discuss, and then come with 1. Often, my table groups say, no, I have to give you 3. No, it's a one-shot deal, this one. Sure. Okay, so let's hear one choice only. Table 3, your choice is?
Number 8.
Number 8, feeling for another person who is suffering. That is a valid answer. It is one of the 8. Their group is 8 as the overall. Over here?
We couldn't decide between 1 and 6.
Oh, see, and it happens all the time. So forced choice, given that you have to only have 1, where are you going to lean?
1. Sure. 1.
Knowing their internal state. I know what's going on in your brain, including his or her own thoughts and feelings. I know what you're thinking. Okay? And over here? 4. Number 4, intuiting or projecting, just projecting themselves in. Not being there, not knowing it, but projecting into another situation is what Greenleaf said. It's his version. So it's just, again, you're all right. There is no wrong. But in servant leader world, empathy is the imaginative projection of one's own consciousness into another being, and then you kind of go in, and then you come back, and you're like, oh, okay, empathy time. Or as we've talked already, just even with the reflecting skill, you decide as a leader when is it time to use that characteristic, all right? And you are going to practice. So please turn to page 38 of your manual. So let me read the instructions to you. Important that you get this, because if you don't have it from the get-go, then the whole thing is going to just fall like the marshmallow towers. So it's inspired from an exercise in terms of empathy management. So read the 4 scenarios that follow. Okay, so they start on page 30. It's on page 39, 40, 41, and 42. Don't look at page 43 when you're getting there. Okay, try to hide it. Read the 4 scenarios as follows, and in each case, choose the statement or question you would be likeliest to respond as your answer. So that would be your response. So somebody says, example, wow, yeah, I heard that my office is changing, and someone I worked with, we're being split. So for me, I don't find that fair. And they're told different types of options. One would be, deal with it. We're modernizing. We're going there. Another one might be, oh, you think, no, it's not what you said. I'm playing off of the example. Another one would say, you think your move was bad? Let me tell you about my move. When my move happened, I lost 6 people. You lost 1, so consider yourself lucky. Right? So you're going to make a choice then over each question. So you see, it's question column 1 or item 1 there. There's letters across. You circle the letter that best represents for you how you would respond. Okay, so if you look at scenario 1. You see it, the colleague is speaking, etc. There's an A to G answer there. So you decide, you circle. When you circle, let's say you chose C on page 39, well then in row 1, you circle the C. And you keep going through. Okay, so that's the first part. So first of all, answer the 4 questions, and then we're going to go to the actual activity. Okay, so take a peek. It's about 5 minutes. Be very fast in your thinking. Don't overthink it. Just what's your gut feel of what you would say. So answer the 4 questions, and then we'll get back to the next step. All right. So here's how this plays out. One person will answer. Will actually read scenario 1. Okay. So. Here we have a table of 5, so we'll work it out, but there's only 4 scenarios. So you can actually do a second person you can do 1 scenario twice. So the person actually says as if it's them. So they role play, they say out loud, I transferred into this unit 4 months ago, and I've hardly gotten to know anyone at all. I just can't seem to break into the group or be accepted by the people here. No one has really made any effort to be friendly. The people, as well as this building, strike me as really, really cold. And then you would go around, so person 1, so if it's I'll use an example of 4, so if it's Jennifer who read the statement, Wade reads back his choice to her as he's actually saying it to her in a real conversation. So you say yours, he says his, and then here's what's really important to grasp here. Not really a big deal. However, you use the traffic light model. So Jennifer gives her situation. Wade responds, to which Jennifer says, if it's I liked the way you answered that. I'm receptive. I'll give you a green light on that response. If they find that your response was a little, I don't know, I just don't know how to take it, they'll give you a yellow. And if they feel that that question would be a total shutdown for me, it would actually strike like a threat thing, or I just feel really like that you're not understanding me, you just say red light, okay? Remember, this is not personal when the responses are given to the red, yellow, green. We're just practicing what it's like to see all the multiple ways in which people perceive an answer as empathic or not, okay? Then round 2, Wade reads question 2, and then you go around and give your responses. Each time it's a color of the light, and then to Ken, and then to Christine. Here you can do one scenario twice. Instructions good? Off you go. Good luck. Okay, so how did that experience play out for you? From a receiver and a giver of empathy. What did you notice?
Some said that they had chosen their responses based on a quadrant for the person that couldn't.
So a quadrant referring to.
That circle thing.
Okay, so it was, you used you brought in the lens of understanding. And based on where I heard the situation, I applied that model, and I think that this would be the best response because I'm anticipating whether they're in cooperation, caution, or danger zone, so.
Well, no, more if they were, if the person you're speaking to was more of all about the appreciation, or just get it done, or need to do it right.
Okay, so just at the general level, not the
Yeah,
layers, just the 4 quadrants
So if
pure.
that person's a get it right person, that they may appreciate, wanting more
Okay.
detail,
Gotcha,
or asking for more detail.
excellent. Good, I see a synthesis happening where you're integrating the tools into the scenario, so that's great. What else? Any ahas?
I realized I did not read the instructions very well, and I was giving my answer as this would be the general theme of my reaction, not this is what my very first
Okay.
comment would be.
It's all right. Still got the experience of responding back and seeing how people, give the perception in their brain of this is a red, green, or yellow. So, what do we do with your answers? Well, the person who made this, who's a professional expert, has associated all of those responses with a possible perception in the brains of the other people who are receiving your empathic statements. So go to, you should have your answer key on page. This is back at the beginning. Thank you, page 38. So write these letters and also look at the definitions, that those are the correct appropriate responses according to the author, and then you'll notice how you responded.
I don't understand, how can there's no I in that first one.
So you have to go to page 43 to see what I stands for.
Yeah, I'm going to do I'm not, oh, there we go. Yeah, I was missing the thing that you needed. So above is the actual interpretation of what would be inquiring. So did anybody, whatever you chose across here, so who chose G? Anyone? Okay, so the perception is that, okay, that from an empathy standpoint, you were doing some inquiring, okay, but there was still more of an opportunity to be more empathic. Okay, based on that example, do you understand how to read this? Or you still need more clarification? Okay, so question, who had E on question 1? Okay, so you, on question 1, you answered E. The E is for empathize. So that is the green light. So back to the traffic light model. Okay, you answered what would be the appropriate okay? We want empathy all over the place, but if you chose I, or R, or S, those tend to be, according to the research, yellow light responses. And if you had any J, A's, or D's, it's possible that it causes a threat response in that person's mind in terms of, oh, that was kind of like a red light for me. I didn't feel the love. And each example, so for the inquiring type of response, so these are the 7 types of responses that are on your page. They're on page 43. So you can see, inquiring is, so to tell me more. Judging is, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I'm judging, I'm making a judgment. Advising is, let me tell you how that works. Okay? Sympathizing, which is not the same as empathizing, is, I feel bad. I feel bad for you. That's kind of what the answer was. Where am I? The reinterpret is, this is what I think you're trying to say, and that sounds a lot like the reflecting technique, right? So, but the goal is to reflect, then empathize, so that's one possibility. Then we move to the, I'll go quickly to diverting. Oh, you think, so that was the example I used. Oh, you think losing one colleague was a big deal? Let me tell you about my story when I lost 5. That's diverting, and it's not about the person. The empathic response is I recognize what you're experiencing, I'm intuitively projecting myself into your situation, and I'm sensitive to that. So do we have a better understanding of the answer key now, what it means? All right, so the responses, red, green, yellow, up there. And it's just for you to notice, okay, where did the majority, or where did my responses, are my responses all over the place? Or did I tend to have, did anyone have 4 here? Anyone have 3 empathies? 3 empathies, congrats. 2? Okay. 1? So we're there, okay. So your goal is to see, how many times do I find myself, according to the exercise, that I've had what I'm saying is with the best of intention, right? I'm trying to be empathic, but I'm being perceived potentially as judging, advising, or diverting. Right, so the key thing to remember about empathy, it's not about me, and I don't want to use my stories to help you feel better. I want to say I'm sensitive to what you're living, etc. I haven't lived that, but I'm really mindful of, oh my gosh, that you're going through this. And that's the empathic sort of direction we want to take, yes?
It could have just been the script that we were given, but a couple of those empathetic answers actually made me feel dismissed.
Right.
So, I guess it's not always great.
No. Again, this is just an indicator from this author of what possibly exists. But you are, in this room, much more complex than 4 case study scenarios. There's a lot of things that go in, a lot of triggers in there, a lot of things that drive your behavior, for sure.
Richard here made a really good point that we rarely just stop at that empathy, because if someone comes into the director's office, I'm the director, and they made it all the way to my office to tell me about something, if I just stop at, oh, it seems like you're frustrated. Thank you, that was nice. You don't stop it there, because they obviously, the purpose of their visit is to maybe come for a solution. So we start with the empathy, but then we move on to something else. Obviously not the red, but how can we find a solution to this? Because we have work, right? People don't just come around to look for hugs, unless they do.
Yeah.
But that's a bit weird. So
To some, others love it.
To some.
Yeah.
But it's a first step. That's all we were saying.
Absolutely. Remember, our goal here is just to get you exposed to how empathy is interpreted. You saw the 8 different definitions. You saw and other authors say that this is possibly one way. The bottom line is that you want to be mindful of the impact of empathy, and of course, as everything in this course we're talking about, what is the appropriate use, and you can see here what impact it can possibly have. So what concept did we cover there? I think it's pretty straightforward. Oh, it didn't show up. But it's empathy. I think that one is pretty clear. So key concepts people need to be recognized for their special and unique spirits. In developing empathy for staff, it's an important first step is knowing the expectations we hold for others, our jobs, and ourselves as personal, professional, collegial, supervisor, resource. And empathy comes at the end. Now there's a link here. No, it's good. It's been reset. Thank you.
Oh.
Thanks. I didn't tell
Test me
you.
with something?
I didn't tell you I put a new battery in. I
You
apologize. My
Thank
bad.
you. That makes me feel
Yeah, is that red light?
like I'm irrelevant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hug?
No, it's okay.
So what's the link between, because performance management strikes a chord in people's brains that puts them in threat mode when you ask the word, can I, or say the statement, can I give you some feedback? Susan, can I give you some feedback about how you handled that questionnaire thing before? See?
Immediately, you feel like a
Immediately.
like a
Immediate.
feeling in like in your chest, like
Yeah.
like got hit with a ball or something.
Absolutely, yeah. I was gonna say, I thought it was extremely professional, it was timely, we had the group here, et cetera, et cetera. But the brain goes,
Yeah.
so you need to know in performance management, here's what Robert Greenleaf said. Acceptance of the person requires a tolerance of imperfection. Anyone could lead perfect people, if there were any. But there aren't any perfect people. They may think they are, but that's where you get into socio-psychopath, and it's a whole different story. This is important here. The servant leader always accepts and empathizes, never rejects the person. The servant leader always empathizes, always accepts the person, but sometimes refuses to accept some of the person's effort or performance as good enough. All right, so Greenleaf is still very popular today among those Fortune 500 companies and SAS and Starbucks and who else, the other, because he's not saying this is fluff. Empathy is not fluff. I'm sensitive to your situation, however, I still need you to deliver. Right, so that whole balance. So performance management strikes a chord in us from a threat level, so we need to be mindful of the impact that empathy can have when you're conducting those performance management mid-year, full year, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to do, I'm looking at the time, I'm going to make an offer here to you. We can do this module till 11:45, or we can go right now at lunch, come back at 12:30, and we can speed things up, maybe. We have a speaker though. I have to tell you, we have a speaker coming from 2:30 to 3. 2:30 to 3. When's my speaker coming? Anyway, I'll figure that out. We have a speaker this afternoon. I think I told you 3:30 to 4, right?
You did.
Yeah, so I think it's 3:30 to 4, around the notion of change and well-being. So it's up to you. Do you want to keep going right now, or do we just stop for lunch? There's nobody in the cafeteria right now, so you can get your food quickly, eat, and it'll give us time. We're kind of right on schedule right now, so it's up to you. You want to finish off this section here, or just head for lunch right now? You had enough for the morning?
How long is this section supposed to take?
Well, I'm stopping in 15 minutes.
I think it's hard.
Let's do it.
Let's do
Are you
it.
running?
We're okay to get going? Okay. And I'm going to do it more in a large group process than the individual. So I want us to there goes the paper. Page 44. So let's do this all just in a large group. Okay. We don't have to do this individually or in groups. So In addition to the 10 character, I've heard some of you say that there are other characteristics. So let's just hear from all of us, and we'll take notes down as we hear them together. We'll do a group study here. We've got the 10 characteristics, including empathy. But if you were to say, you know what, we're a working group and we're doing characteristics 2.0 and a new version, what would you add? Oh, that was a very, I got one. Lisa.
Humor and creativity.
Humor, so let's separate them. Humor as an essential character trait that your leader can have a light side. Creativity from a standpoint of?
Just maybe more like the fun, like just interesting ideas that are just a little bit outside of the work, just to make it a bit more interesting.
Sure. So getting outside of, a little bit of outside of the box, right? But emphasis on kind of, hey, how can we do things differently? Make sense? Okay. What else? Keep going. Characteristics that you think would be essential for an employee if you were to, you know, say, I got the 10, that's great. But other essentials, Christine.
I think calm, like just a
Calm.
calm approach.
Calmness, yeah. So some sort of, not stoic, but just calm, cool, collected, right?
Because if they're not worried, then we shouldn't worry.
Yeah.
That was good.
My colleague who's left the school now, Eric Baudouin, used to use the notion of when you're on a plane and there's a steward, you know, walking, the plane is extreme turbulence and you're having dips, you know, especially if you're flying those prop planes and you're like this, and people tend to look to the air steward and what are they doing? They're like, so would you like some ice with that? Okay. And they just show this coolness. And it actually just doesn't keep everybody, but they're watching and they're going, should I be nervous here? Like, okay, they're not freaking out, so I'm not freaking out. Absolutely. Any others?
I put role model
Uh-huh.
in the way of just role modeling like the expected behaviors. So you know, like in the SMART objectives, there's expected behaviors, like
Yeah.
the team playing, the thinking things through, respectful, like role modeling those expected behaviors. Or even like, you know, if you tell your employees, you know, I want everybody on time for meetings, like are you on time for meetings? You know, and you set time people's hours, or like do you commit to the hours that you say you're gonna be in? You know,
Absolutely.
stuff like that, like little things that people pick up on.
For sure. And they know, and we know they notice.
Oh, yeah.
You're stating that, but what you're showing is the exact opposite. So now you're asking me, so I'm not so convinced about your adherence and stuff. It's just not resonating with me. You say it, and then now we have a negative feeling going on. Another one?
Humility.
Humility. Tell me more.
I mentioned it yesterday, I think it's something where employees perceive you as just like, you know, you're no better than anyone else, you know, you're out there, you know, you make mistakes, you don't know everything. I think it's very important.
Yeah. So just the humility side of saying, you know what, yeah, I do have the title, I do have these responsibilities, but we are a team, you know, and they sometimes say a leader with no title. You kind of, as opposed to some leaders, you've heard them say before, well, listen, I'm the director here, and, you know, so it's just like a spike in, you know, it now becomes a whole thing about levels and power, which is a very big game in leadership, for sure. Any final to add?
Genuine? Is it-
Genuineness, yeah.
Genuineness.
And could we, I was gonna do a synonym, but I'm not allowed.
Authentic.
Who said it?
Authentic.
Thank you, Christine, I didn't say it. She did. Authentic, genuine. So, kind of like, be real, you know, when I see this, when I hear this, when I feel this from you, do I think you're crafting it, or is this really coming from an authentic, genuine place?
Because we had this discussion that I think it's worse no empathy is better than fake empathy, if I can summarize it.
Yes. Yeah, you'd rather just, you know what, don't give me anything if you're gonna go, oh yeah, I'm intuitively projecting into your situation, yeah,
Let me get my notes.
Yeah.
I am, no.
Anybody ever watch the show, the Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm? Anyway, if you want to see somebody who's lacking in empathy, you watch him, and there's actually a scene at one point where he's supposed to be empathic, and his version is he just sits there and he goes, oh, he doesn't have the words, so he tries to use what he thinks empathy is, which is just doing that. He never says a word. The person's going on like, and then, so it's, anyway.
But there are lots of people who don't want to talk about feelings at work. Like,
Of course.
Who really feel that part of it needs to be out of the workplace,
Yeah.
and so they're very uncomfortable with
Oh, for
that,
sure.
you know. And I've got one particular gentleman, and I don't know if it's cultural, but really kind of struggles with that. And
For
so, you know, I generally will say to him, "Do you want to have a chat, or do you want to go for a little walk first?" And so he'll generally remove himself and then come back, and then he's fine, and then we can chat. But he really kind of struggles with talking about emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, meeting the person where they are at is crucial for you as leaders, you know, so meet them where they are, and if they're that particular style, which, you know, oh my gosh, empathy would just be, you know, possibly cause a response where, no, don't do that, just a one-word validator, or just, I'm here to listen, and you're just silent and say, wow, okay, I hear you, thank you, I'm gone. Could be a moment just like that. So, I was just going to quickly go here. Canada School is in partnership with TPS. We always have to talk about how this links to values. All right, so what I just had you do there, we went from the 10 characteristics to some additional characteristics, and then how we add values into the mix, because in a sense they are also characteristics here. So values, you know, can come from a variety of sources: character traits, qualities, attributes, virtue, assets, strengths. But we want to take values from a different perspective. So you've got the code. We have the code for the public sector from pages 45 to 48. So we're not going to read the code. You can read the code after. The section on page 48, though, and this is consider this activity homework, okay? So my employees and the code, what do they need from me? What we'd ask you to do as part of your sort of action plan is identify. So I want you to right now think of one of your employees. Okay, right now identify that employee, and then raise your hand and tell me what you think they value most from as a personal value. Someone give you an example. We don't know the person's name, but you think of Karen. She at work, what her biggest value is, and doesn't have to come from the code. We have additional things here. So think of someone and tell me, what do you think they think in terms of values? All right, well, let's keep that one then for some homework. I'll give you an example. All right, so I have a colleague, Andréane. Okay, she's my colleague. Work with her very closely. What's not on the code, I think, for her that's important, is partnership. Partnering, so the collaboration. Okay, so collaboration is on here. So I'm thinking directly with my employee in mind, my colleague in mind. She values collaboration, cooperation. Okay, so then I said that's potential what I think she may be thinking. Okay, or what she values, and then practical actions. My action plan then would be in terms of what they value. What can I do then to better respond to that person's value? So I'm doing a very light covering here of the public sector value things. I know you've had a lot of training and they're covered in many courses, but I'm taking the public service values, turning them into personal values and asking you to reflect, not right now, for homework after the course. Each person on your team, are you able to say with clarity what I think they really value most out of the work they do? And the question is then, can I sit with my employee during performance management time or career development time and say, Jennifer, is it okay for me to ask?
Sure.
Right now? Jennifer, what do you value the most at work? What's your biggest value? Like, what do you value the most?
I don't know, actually.
Okay, just need to think about it. Does somebody have an idea of what they value most at work? Susan, what do you value most?
Excellence.
Excellence. Things must be, so if I'm working with Susan and I know excellent, I better have my stuff together like
But not
that.
necessarily like it has to be excellent. I always tell my team, I'm like, let's strive for excellence.
Striving for excellence.
Let's work towards that, let's work hard.
So knowing that value, if Susan's my leader, I got that mindset. Another one, I saw another hand.
Okay, fairness.
This employee you value fairness.
Mhm.
So is there an equitable exchange where we both have our time, we've both had our air time, and we feel that, you know what, okay, yeah, it was a good exchange, I've been heard, you've been heard, and we go from there. All right, so that's that exercise, just to kind of, it goes a lot farther. A servant leader also wants to know what you value most as well. So that's that section. The last section we'll finish with here is neuroscience. I'm going to end with this. And what I'll do is I'm going to have you read the page. We'll define social intelligence first, okay? It's the ability to get along well with others, to get them to cooperate with you, sometimes simply referred to as people skills. SI includes an awareness of situations and the social dynamics that govern them, and the knowledge of interaction styles and strategies that can help a person achieve his or her objectives in dealing with others. It also involves a certain amount of self-insight, hence self-awareness, and a consciousness of one's own perceptions and reaction patterns. And then, of course, bringing that into the neuroscience, any or all of the sciences such as neurochemistry, neuroleadership, etc., experimental psychology, that deal with the structure and function of the brain. So right below there, I'm going to give you the answers here. By the way, I'm showing you on the screen. These are all the multiple intelligences that also exist in parallel to social intelligence. But social intelligence, again, is like emotional intelligence, considered a very, very high asset if you can seize or understand what social intelligence is all about. So they're all, like I said, there's positive, cultural, collaborative, etc. But social intelligence is what we're talking about right now. And so instead of doing the fill-in-the-blank exercise, I'll give you this info, but I'll read you out the bottom line. And this is where we really realize how some of these values and things, and I didn't hear them in the room, and I'm glad I didn't hear them because this author reminds us. This is from Mr. Pillay. Do I have it here? No, I don't have my book. I'll bring it up. Oh no, I do have it, yeah. Your Brain in Business. The Neuroscience of Great Leaders. So, here's what Srinivasan Pillay has to say. Fairness. Fairness is your top, so the first column, the first subject under social intelligence variable. Fairness, or lack of it, causes very powerful brain responses. Perceived inequity can dramatically affect employee productivity. We have something called mirror neurons that can detect inequity. And guess what? Then you get those 4-hour spurts of chemical poison in your body, making you just present. The next one, trust. Trust and faith can be a critical component of quality. Some organizations may experience a crisis of trust. A breach of trust activates the threat region of the brain, and the message, there is no reward here, is transmitted. our third element, vicarious reward. Employees can feel the same positive feelings of another who has been rewarded. So what Lisa was saying, somebody who comes out and has the, hey, you know, like you're creative, we're working through this, it actually can be felt vicariously. So those leaders who openly and authentically celebrate victories, as opposed to, hey, there's the cake, I'll just take a small piece, and they walk back to their office. Versus, so everybody, wow, congrats, yeah, super, you know, let's really do this, makes a big difference. Even small victories, we've finished that first section, congrats, can create a passionate following. So you want followers, get out there and celebrate, okay? It doesn't have to be balloons or anything like that, but say, wow, I'm proud, I'm happy, we did it, all right? And our final one, perspective taking. Perspective taking can be as more effective with employees than a first person perspective, empathy. So this author also says to those, you know, great, empathy's good, super, etc. But getting individuals to think things through for themselves, and actually what isn't written there is in the not the dotted line but the solid line, that's supposed to say third person perspective taking. So as a coach, if you're coaching whatever and you ask them not to okay, Wade, what do you think right now? No, it's Wade, when you look at yourself doing that, what do you think? So that also can stimulate people's own aha moments. So that's kind of the science-based research. I cannot say enough, this is my favorite book on leadership because it talks about, you know what, you get to figure out what's driving people's behaviors. So I'll come back this afternoon with part 2. There are a few other variables that drive people's behaviors, and as a servant leader, Robert Greenleaf, if he would have been able to see this stuff, he would have freaked out because he would have said, oh my God, yes, these are 10 characteristics, but here are the other things. And notice, fairness and trust. Trust is probably one of the huge ones. Okay? On page 50, think about a work experience. So this can be you as a manager or leader, or colleague, peer or direct report, where you helped someone grow, develop. All right, so that could have been a short-term thing, could have been a long-term thing, could have been medium-term, doesn't matter. But thanks to you, they said, hey, that helped. I grew, I developed, and you even saw it. Okay, so it doesn't have to be something grandiose, you know, around, you know, over 2 years together or whatever. Could have just been a conversation, etc. But just provide an example and just write in the space below how you went about it. What was your approach? What kind of techniques did you use? And you'll notice right underneath there are 4 options there. So I'd like you to take a pen or pencil and pinpoint in the circle. So you see again we have a circle, but this is not the other circle. There's an asking approach to helping, there's a telling approach, and there's dealing with a past or a problem that someone had that you may have initiated or intervened, or you're looking for a solution or something in the future. So use that circle to sort of identify what mode you were in and what place you were on the helping others grow sort of map. Instructions clear? All right. This is just five minutes of quiet time, then we'll go into the large group debrief. Anybody like to share what they did? And you keep the name out, obviously, but how you helped them grow.
I guess I can share.
Sure.
Just a fairly small example, but one I've done with many of the employees
Okay.
is, as we're all public servants, we have a lot of meetings to go to. Good facilitation skills are something that I think are an asset.
Yeah.
And just sharing. And so I find that often, especially new employees, they sometimes lack those skills. Like they don't know how to properly manage the time in a meeting, or if their conflict develops and that type of thing. So normally what I do is I talk to the employee ahead of time to find out if they're interested in learning and they feel that that's something that they might want to do one day or whatever. And they almost always say yes, and then I talk to them about what the expectations are. And then I sort of say, well, why don't you come to the next meeting and you can sort of see how we do it and, you know, sort of learn by example. And then they attend a meeting, and then at the next meeting I let them run it.
Okay,
Like,
you own it.
They own it.
Yeah.
From beginning to end, from, you know, setting the agenda to, you know, all that kind of stuff, assigning a taker if it's necessary, and that type of thing. And then, something I also tell them is at the beginning is that I will provide them feedback. So sort of what you're saying before is when you get that ball, they know to expect that from the beginning, that they're gonna get feedback, right? So it's not gonna be like, oh yeah, I think, you know, at the end, oh, no, I need to talk to you about what you did today. But they know that that's coming.
Sure.
And then it's sort of, and then, you know, we do that a few times, and it just, I've received some positive feedback from the employees that they find that sort of what do you call it?
Experiential?
Experiential learning.
Has a strong meaning, yeah. So that first example fits right over here. Okay, so there was a shared responsibility, there was like an asking, you know, some providing of info, but then to solve something in the future to give them, a new skill. So you don't see what this quadrant is yet, but you will shortly, but that's where that story came from, right around there. Anyone have a different one or something to add? Susan?
I had an employee, she was like kind of like fresh out of university, master's in computational stuff, and like she was happy to have a job and she would do everything, but she was one of my IT employees, and like I'm not an IT person, so I kind of like set up like regular meetings so that she could kind of like update me on what she was doing. It was kind of for me to learn, but also like let her have the opportunity to like organize what she was doing. So I think it was like kind of like a shared
mutual benefit.
yeah, like there's, and like so like now I know a lot about IT, but you know, like she would like kind of ask me like, can I do this, can I do that, and I really just like encouraged her to reach out, and I always made time for her, and I explained to my table group before, I always leave buffer space in my calendar so that if people want to come talk to me, I'm open.
Right.
And you know, and so what ended up happening is when she was working, she was trying to decide if she wanted to go do her PhD.
Right.
So she was like, I don't know if I want to do my PhD, and so I spent a lot of time with her, like, you know, and like I said, I use the word conceptualizing because after doing this, I realized, you know, like I kind of helped her with like conceptualizing where does she want to be in her career, like what is the future, what would be,
absolutely.
yeah, and you know, so I would just help her conceptualize, and I would just, you know, do coaching, mentoring, just gave her time, and like when I left like Hamilton, like she was still working there, and like she wrote me this really lovely card about like how I probably don't even know how much I've touched her life and like changed her life, and everything she does in life now, she always thinks, what would Susan do? And like, you know, so but yeah, it was just, I guess, like to me, I think all I can think about is I just gave my time.
Yeah, which was so valuable. As you heard years later, you have no idea what you did. And so I heard you talking about, you know, you had a combination of asking where you want to go. You talked about the way that you kind of telling by suggesting, you know, and some mentoring in there as well about how she's going to solve that, you know, that issue. Nothing in the past or problem. It is a problem, but it's something that we're looking for. It's positive. So you were hovering around both of these quadrants as well. Did I see another hand of someone who wanted to? Or I imagined, no?
One thing I find interesting is hearing the different perspectives is you can also look at this and how to manage your own boss as well.
Oh, yeah.
And you can
It's
look
great.
at this in terms of as your team, if you have, if your director or whatever is a certain way, to even help your colleagues out. I mean, you can obviously you can apply this anywhere.
Absolutely.
So I find it interesting when you look at the, with employees in mind, but so many times I'm like, oh, well, that's a great way, manage your superiors.
There are times when you're going to use, there's 4 quadrants here, and we'll show you what the combinations are. But again, remember, it's techniques for helping others grow. So when you combine asking them about a past or a problem issue, okay, this is where the realm of counseling and therapy lives, okay? And as we've said before, you can't be a counselor, you're not authorized to counsel or be a therapeutic specialist, but there may be a therapeutic or counseling moment where what would be a counseling or therapeutic moment is recommending someone maybe consider calling EAP because I don't have that qualification to help you through what you're living right now.
But it doesn't even have to be some sort of emotional distress, it could just be doing a post-mortem on a project, because you're talking about the past, how they think that project went, where could they improve, that type of thing. To me,
Yeah.
that's still kind of in that past problem thing.
Yes, and good segue to here. Okay, this is more, because I'm asking you, again, this is more of a counseling therapy to ask, but here is more of the working of past or problem in something that, a postmortem could fit, yes, in either section there, but we have consultants come in and managers come in, solve problems and fix things of the past, and most of the time, your primary thing is to execute, so there's a telling and there is a consulting component there. Now we move to the other side where we heard our two stories. We have the combination of telling for a future. That's where we heard Susan say she did some mentoring. Okay, so that's another form, and it's okay to mentor. Who here has a mentor? Who here is a mentor? Okay, so it's okay to go to that place where you can say, tell me what you did. When you were in the situation I'm in, how did you get through it? How did you survive it? Okay. But ultimately, the one in terms of servant leadership that we're talking about, what do you think goes here?
Coaching.
There we go. Absolutely. So this is not written. We left that blank intentionally for the purpose of the exercise, but you can fill in these 4 gaps if you want, but you'll receive them anyway because I'm sending you the slides, right? So you'll have them, so it's up to you. Now in the realm of coaching, we also heard Jody mention its link to something called feedback. So coaching and feedback, right? So the feedback is, I used it in a scary way with Susan. And when I said, hey, can I give you some feedback about how your presentation was in front of this group with your paper? And she's still having the feeling. See, this happens again, right? So there's positive, reinforcing feedback, and then there's constructive feedback. You normally want to be giving, they say when you see it, say it. So when you see something good, say it immediately. Don't wait. So in terms of feedback, I'm going to show you the course we have on feedback, so I can't say too much about feedback here. But descriptive, positive feedback is a simple formula. Description plus impact. So the positive feedback is, Susan, the presentation about the facilities I thought was a great idea because we've got people here and it's, what a better way, they're here, it's timely, wasn't too long. So I think the impact it's going to have is you're going to get some, some pretty good answers here from these folks as to what we really need. How did your chest feel there? Yeah, better, right? So coaching and feedback. And then I'm putting out there as well the link to performance management. So we talked a little bit before about empathy and performance management. But in this coaching and feedback here, hopefully, if you've been doing this regularly, performance management doesn't have to be a succeeded minus. It's just a succeeds or a succeeds plus, right? We don't have to do an action plan because we've been throughout the year constantly doing and living the 10 principles of Greenleaf and Spears. And I heard you say, Susan, like, wow, we conceptualized, together. And that's part of helping, the person, if they get the clear picture, if there's a lot of listening, there's a lot of coaching going on, chances are your life is going to be easier. So a servant leader would say, yeah, spend a lot of time there. And Greenleaf also had to say something about the realm of coaches. As a leader, including teacher, coach, and administrator, one must have the facilitating, tempting the hearer into that leap of imagination that connects the verbal concept to the hearer's own experience. So what it's really saying here is get them to figure it out for themselves. The science behind coaching tells us when someone comes up with their own solution, it sticks much more than I gave you advice. All right? And the limitation on language to the communicator is that the hearer must make that leap of imagination. One of the arts of communicating is to say just enough to facilitate that leap. Many attempts to communicate are nullified by us saying too much. So we basically finish it for them. So it's not mentoring, it's not coaching, it's actually just pure telling. And do you remember in the empathy exercise we did? This is where it's all about judging and advising. They would be in that role. So that's red. This is red light traffic stuff over here. Okay. Relevant characteristic. Well, of course, we were talking about commitment to the growth of people, and servant leaders endeavor to put the needs of their followers first. It's about respect, professional development. But again, Larry Spears says, yeah, employees are number one, but the needs of the organization have to be met. You know, we're going to do our best, we're going to meet you halfway, but you have to show up too. And here are some tools for growth that are both formal and informal. So, you know, observing, noticing, that caring attitude we talked about, an open door, a true open door policy, more informal, and then the formal coaching and feedback, the formal mentoring, and then of course our plans that we use. To deepen your learning, if you want to take, come back for another one-day course in our Student of Leadership courses, D101 is Coaching for Effective Leadership. And in there you do some in-depth coaching practices. Anyone take that course already?
I'm signed up in April.
All right, so you've taken it?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Fantastic. I'm saying it to the camera, fantastic.
Yeah.
So you have a fantastic course to take after this, just a one day, but really puts you in the coaching mode. You know what? We're going to take that, we're going to make that an MP4 file and say. And now, as usual, what time is it?
Reflection time.
It's reflection time. So take 2-3 minutes, answer the questions that you feel are answerable for you, that you feel like answering right now on page 51.